Namaskar. There are three types of clashes that we normally experience. Clash on the physical level, clash on the psychic level, and clash on the spiritual level. And the clash on the spiritual level is just that feeling that I'm not in touch with the divine, I'm not connected with my deeper self, that kind of clash. So today I'd like to share two discourses which give some sweet but also practical advice for how to overcome that spiritual clash and to feel a sense of connection with the divine, to feel a sense of intimacy and closeness. So there are two short sections, just a couple of paragraphs from each discourse. So here we go. The first discourse. The Supreme Consciousness is showering His compassion on each and every particle of this universe. He is showering His compassion without distinction of caste, creed, nationality, or religion. But what happens? There is a shower, a heavy shower of compassion on each and everybody. But if during that shower you hold an umbrella over your head, you won't be drenched. It means you won't be soaked. So, is that the fault of the shower? Certainly not. The fault is with your hand and with your umbrella of ego. And that is why you are not drenched by that compassion, by that grace. The Supreme Consciousness is not at fault. Then what are you to do? You are to remove that umbrella of ego from your head, and then and there you will be drenched, fully drenched, by His universal compassion. So I think I've shared this one with you before. The second one is new. Some people think that the Supreme Consciousness is far away, and showing no mercy has left them deserted in a corner. They believe He thinks about everyone except themselves. To such people, my reply is, He thinks about everyone. If He's not thinking about you, He must be thinking about not thinking about you. If He thinks that He will think about everyone except you, He is also thinking about you. So it logically follows that He thinks about everyone, excluding none. But even so, if someone thinks that the Supreme Consciousness does not think about him or her, he may remain a very distant object. On the other hand, if anyone thinks that the Supreme Consciousness is near, that He is right here, in Sanskrit, iha means here, He may be so near that the proximity cannot be measured. Ihantike means nearer than near. We say 1 mile away or 2 cubits wide. This is iha. But when the object is so near that the gap cannot be measured, it is called ihantike. You think the Supreme Consciousness is very near, but maybe He is even nearer than that. His closeness is immeasurable. So there they are, the two discourses together. Remove the umbrella of ego from your head, and when you are, and always think that the Supreme Consciousness is near. Now, how can we apply them to meditation? So the first thing, how do you remove the umbrella of ego? Well, there's a couple of ways, and they can be done within and outside meditation. But basically, the most important one is always think about the Supreme Consciousness, because when you are thinking about anything else, that reinforces the ego. When you think about the Supreme Consciousness, that dissolves the ego. So the more you think about the Supreme Consciousness, the more your ego will be dissolved. Second, cultivate humility. So if you want to develop any quality, just constantly think about that quality. Think about humility, and that in itself will develop the quality of humility and help close the umbrella of ego. But during our actual practice of meditation, I think the image of closing the umbrella relates very nicely to the practice of focusing on your Ishta chakra. So when you focus on your chakra point for meditation, you withdraw your mind from all other things, you withdraw it from the world, you withdraw it from your body, and you shrink it down to one tiny point. And that's like closing the umbrella. If you look at an umbrella from above, when the umbrella is open, it takes up a big ring. And when you close the umbrella, it's just a tiny point, right? So closing, focusing in your Ishta chakras, you can think of it as closing your umbrella. You're taking your mind away from all the things that sustain the ego. Ego cannot exist if it doesn't have an object. It needs objects. So as you withdraw the mind from all objects, the world, the body, all your identity things, gender and nationality and so forth, and gradually make it into one tiny point, then effectively you are closing the umbrella, removing the ego. Once you've done that, then think about the second discourse. So think that your chakra point is surrounded by the infinite ocean of divine love and divine consciousness. And normally we would imagine, that ocean is around me, but we might not feel that it's that close. So here the instruction is, think that the Supreme Consciousness is closer than close, that the gap cannot be measured. In other words, there's no gap, right? So, and when you combine that with concentrating in a tiny point, then that ocean of Supreme Consciousness comes right into the point and touches it. There's no gap. So if there's no gap and the point takes up no space, basically the Supreme Consciousness is filling up everything. So I think it's nice also to refer to one of the songs that our guru wrote, one that many of you know. It's called "I Love This Tiny Green Island." So the words of the song say, "I love this tiny green island," which you can think of as your Ishta chakra point, surrounded by the sea. All right, so the Ishta chakra is surrounded by the sea of divine love, divine consciousness. And then it says, touched by the sea. All right, so it's not just surrounding it, but it's touching it. And then, last line, decorated by the sea. So it's not only touching it, it's doing something, it's changing it, it's decorating it, it's doing something wonderful, right? So there's a lot of activity, or a lot of, kind of the initiative is coming not from the point. The initiative is coming from the sea. The sea is coming in, surrounding the point. It's touching the point. It's decorating the point. So if you take that image, thinking of your Ishta chakra as the point of the ocean of divine consciousness, as the sea surrounding that little island, and that it's touching and decorating your Ishta chakra point. The combination of those two things, being able to remove the umbrella of ego and shrink down to a tiny point, plus imagining that point intimately touched and decorated by that infinite sea of divine consciousness. If you can do those two things together, it's pretty sure to give you a pretty powerful effect in your meditation. I've been experimenting with that quite a bit over the last few weeks, and I find it very helpful for me. So that's what I wanted to share. I hope you find that interesting enough to go out and give it a try. Of course, as I always say, these things you won't necessarily be able to do it successfully at the first go. You've got to be a bit patient and persistent and keep trying it, and it will gradually become more real and meaningful for you. Thanks very much for watching. Take care. Namaskar.